Alright, so this is the Google Pixel 7a. It joins the Pixel 7 and 7 Pro, which launched last year, to complete the entire Pixel 7 lineup. The idea here is to offer a budget-friendlier option that makes some compromises while still offering the meat and potatoes of what current Google phones are all about. Compared to the 6a from last year, it is a bit more expensive now. $50 to be exact, but it does get 3 big upgrades, including an improved display, new cameras, and surprise, surprise, wireless charging. First off, it now shares a very similar design to the other Pixel 7s. This metallic camera bar, yeah, you know it's a Pixel the moment you see it. I'm really glad they're continuing to run with this aesthetic. I have the C colorway here, and it's essentially a baby blue. It looks really good, and if you're a fan of baby blue, you'll love this. Now, in terms of build, we've got a slightly wider aluminum frame paired with a plastic backing. I initially thought the camera bar was plastic as well, since it doesn't share the same seamless one-piece design of the other Pixel 7s. But nope, it's made out of metal. The phone also has an IP67 water and dust resistance rating. Now, if you're comparing, that's slightly less protective than the IP68 on the Pixel 7 and 7 Pro. Running out the specs, it only comes in one single configuration, and that's with 8 gigs of RAM paired with 128 gigabytes of storage. On the front, you get a completely flat 6.1-inch Full HD Plus 90Hz OLED display, which is up from the 60Hz that we saw on the 6a. That's a nice little quality of life improvement and puts it on par with the refresh rate of the Pixel 7. Right away, you'll probably notice the more prominent bezels, and that's why the 7a ends up being almost identical in size to the Pixel 7, even though it has a 0.2-inch smaller display. The only real complaints I have about the screen is that it could be brighter. When outside, under direct sunlight, I find myself struggling to look at pictures after taking them. You kind of have to shield it from the sun a bit. It is protected by Gorilla Glass, but uses Gorilla Glass 3 instead of Victus, found on the more expensive models. What's interesting, I think the speakers actually sound better than the ones on the regular Pixel 7. They're equally as loud, but on the 7a, you get more bass, better clarity, and overall a better listening experience, which is surprising, right? Because it's the cheaper model. Now, the 7a comes with an optical fingerprint scanner that is fine. These have always been very hit or miss, especially if you have really dry or rough skin on your thumb. My dad does a lot of work with his hands, and yeah, these under-display scanners never work well for him. There's also a 2D face unlock option, which is what I've mainly been using to get into the phone. It's really quick and convenient, especially once you toggle skip lock screen on. You don't even have to do that awkward lift up so it can read your face. You can just look down at it instead. It doesn't do very well in low light, but in good lighting, it pretty much works 100% of the time. Unfortunately, you can't use face unlock for payments or logging into your banking apps. That stuff is fingerprint only. Google says the 4300 mAh battery can last over 24 hours, and I'd say that's about accurate. I did my typical battery drain test, and while I wish I was a little more efficient at certain things, it should still be fine for most people. Like I mentioned earlier, this phone supports wireless charging now, which is cool to see, but it charges pretty darn slow. I think it's like 5 watts or something. It's still nice for those of you who just want to drop it on a wireless charger overnight. Interesting enough, no reverse wireless charging here though. The 7a shares the exact same Tensor G2 processor that's found in both the Pixel 7 and 7 Pro, so all 3 phones should have similar performance. It's not the most powerful chip, and you'll occasionally run into complaints online about overheating problems with the Pixel 7 and 7 Pro, but from my experience, the 7a has run great. It's not the best performer in games like Genshin Impact, but totally playable at medium settings. After 30 minutes, the phone hits a surface temp of 37 degrees Celsius, which is still comfortable to hold. Being a Google phone, it comes pre-installed with the typical Google apps and nothing else, which gives it a very clean, bloat-free experience if you're big on Google services, of course. Like every other Pixel, the software is simple and just easy to just pick up and start using. I've always been a big fan of the effort they put into the animations and then pairing it with precise, well thought out haptics, which I will say aren't quite as good as the Pixel 7 or 7 Pro, but still, very good. Google isn't introducing any brand new software features or tricks on the 7a, and that's okay because you already have access to some of the smartest features you'll find on a phone. For example, call screen is super useful for saving time and messing with spam callers. Having your audio messages automatically transcribed so you don't have to listen to them is something I use more than I thought I would, and the voice dictation is some of the best in the business. Clear calling isn't new, but it wasn't available when the Pixel 7 and 7 Pro initially launched. So I thought now would be a good time to see how well it actually works. So the idea behind clear calling is that it will enhance the caller's voice and reduce background noise. I've got traffic sounds playing behind me right now, and as you can hear, it's pretty loud. Now this is what you hear on the Pixel 7a with clear calling enabled. I still got traffic sounds playing behind me. What do you think? Do I actually sound better? Is my voice enhanced? What about the background noise? Curious to know the results. The most notable change with the 7a is the fact that we've got new camera hardware. Photography is the Pixel's secret sauce, and the 7a does not disappoint. This phone really does put some other much more expensive phones to shame and just shows how good Google's image processing is. Photos tend to have a little more contrast, which makes them pop a bit more. It's very comparable to the 7 and 7 Pro, and like other Pixels, sometimes I'll keep shadows a little darker or it's not as bright as I'd like, but for the most part, it does a really good job. One of my favorite things about Pixels recently is the automatic face unblur feature. Like this picture, for example, my daughter was wailing around like crazy in her bouncer, and it somehow managed to keep her face blur free. This picture would have been a blurry mess and pretty much unusable on any other smartphone. Trust me on that. There's no telephoto, so all zoom is digital. It goes up to 8 times zoom and the results are fine. Not amazing, not terrible. The selfies look pretty good to me, but not my favorite. This one doesn't have autofocus, so if you get too close or too far, the shot might not be as sharp as you'd like. It can do 4K 60 FPS video on the back and up to 4K 30 FPS on the front. Give this thing enough light and it can capture some awesome looking videos. It's always been a weak point for Pixels, so I'm happy to see the improvements over the years. But yeah, I captured a bunch of samples to give you an idea of what you can expect out of this. Anyways, that's my quick review of the Pixel 7a. Even with the $50 price hike, I still think it's a great mid-range phone that offers really solid value. But here's the thing, we've seen Google discount the Pixel 7 to right around this price point before, and that makes the 7a way less appealing. I predict that we'll likely see a discount on the 7a down the road, so unless you need a phone right away, best to wait for a sale of some sort. With all that being said, the 7a is still a reasonably priced phone with flagship quality cameras and plenty of helpful smart features that I really like. As usual, thank you so much for watching. Until the next one, I'm out of here.